I'm Lillian Fox, 7680 East Broadway, Tucson, Arizona. President Grijalva and members of the board, Dr. Stegeman and Dr. Sanchez and counselor. I hope that this superintendent and this board can set a much better new direction for TUSD. That I think this year we're suffering from some problems that were created under the prior administration, that we have some really difficult situations to deal with as a result of some not very good decisions that have been made. And I hope we'll manage to get out of the ruts that TUSD has been in and do some things differently. I have some concerns because I think there's some things where we're doing the same old thing again, and it's not to our advantage. This morning I was talking to a TUSD parent, and she was telling me that at her school the counselor was cut, and they didn't feel like that was right for the counselor to be cut. So the parent association at her school is paying part of a counselor's salary so that they can have a counselor. That school, I guess the parents have the money that they can do that. Not every school would be able to do that, but they felt like that was important and they're committed to education. I was really impressed. That's a TUSD school with a good reputation. I think, though, we've made some mistakes and been less than committed to education. That my concern is the amount of the additional costs of the cabinet. That the cost of the cabinet just on salaries and stipends has been increased by $300,000 this year. It's actually about $400,000. The sheet I gave you, it lists every cabinet position. The first number under each name gives you this year's base salary, stipend, and bonuses, but this doesn't include any benefits for each position. The ones that are highlighted in yellow is where there was an increase, and overall we have about a $300,000 increase just in salaries and bonuses and stipends for the cabinet. It's a result of 2 new positions. I don't think we can afford to do things that way. We haven't filled every position. We still need to fill the assistant superintendent for K-8, hasn't been filled yet, and the chief financial officer position also hasn't been filled yet. Both of those positions are being advertised. So it may turn out once those positions are filled that you actually end up spending more money. The reason we never have enough money to pay teachers and bus drivers and the other people in the district, the reason we don't have enough money to buy math books for kids to take home is because we regularly spend money for what central administration needs and for salaries for central administration, and we kind of ignore the other necessary costs of the district. I think we have to stop that. We've passed out a $31,000 pay raise this year for one person who's in the cabinet. We've passed out a couple of $11,000 pay increases for 2 cabinet positions, a $4,000 pay increase, a $3,000 pay increase. The amount of money, the increases on the cabinet are not reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Guerra, followed by Khadijah Alexander and Phoebe Sheldon Young. Yes.
Because you're the
Can
carry.
you give me a verbal 30-second, please?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good evening, board. My name is Terry Guerra. I live in Midville Park. Last week I was watching the streaming of the meeting, and I wanted to follow up on 2 issues brought up by speakers Roberto Rodriguez and David Morales. I get the sense that Dr. Sanchez has not been made completely aware of the damage that has been done by the previous board and Dr. Petticone. On May 3rd, 2012, I watched this video over and over again, Guadalupe Castillo, a respected elder with the assistance of her cane, approached the podium and asked the board if she could read Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail. Please, I just want to read the letter, she said. Dr. Stegeman was sitting right where Adelita is sitting today, and unlike the many times he allowed the anti-mask groups from Douglas and other places to run past their 3 minutes, he would not make an exception to our respected elder. TPT was out in full force that night, and after a verbal exchange between Dr. Stegeman and Dr. Petticone, this happened. How many cops does it take to arrest a 70-year-old woman? This picture would tell you 4, but if you watch the video, you'll see it's probably double that. Another TUSD student recently reminded me of the time when Michael Hicks came out from the boardroom, surrounded by cops, of course, sat on the guardrails and taunted the very students he was supposed to be protecting. I also have a friend, a parent of a student in TUSD who still bears the pebbles and stones lodged under her skin from being pulled and dragged by Tucson's finest. And Adelita, remember right after the books were were boxed up, and we were over at the meeting on Congress, and there were about 12 students that stood up one by one, young men and young women, who retold the story of having to witness that with tears streaming down their face. It's incidents like this that has caused this big division between the Chicano community and TUSD. David Morales spoke to the question, how do you teach a history class on Chicano perspectives if you do not include textbooks written by Chicanos? The CRC classes that are being rolled out by TUSD are being exposed as less than courageous. Dr. Sanchez stated, in order to include the banned books in the curriculum, all it would do is to take one of the educators to come before the board and make the request. Apparently, Augie Romero, or as I refer to him, go along to get along Augie, continues to be brave only enough to keep his paycheck. Therefore, on behalf of Alfred Chavez, he asked me to come before you today.
That's 30 seconds.
And thank you. And ask that the book Yo Soy Joaquin by Corky Gonzalez be included in the culturally relevant courses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Khadijah Alexander, followed by Phoebe Sheldon Young and Jeremy DeCarvalho.
Hello, TUSD Board. I am Khadijah Alexander, a college student studying Education and Ethnic Studies at Prescott College. I am very concerned about the board's recently approved book list for the culturally relevant curriculum because, as an African American woman who has lived in poverty, I am finding titles that are dehumanizing to my identity, as I imagine they will be to your TUSD students of color. Not only that, but some of these titles go against everything I am learning as an ethnic studies major. I am going to suggest some titles that I find are relevant to me as an African American student, and one title I do find dehumanizing. I suggest the book Occupied America, A History of Chicanos by Rudy Acuna. This book taught me an overall history of Chicanos that highlights the amazing strength of this group despite hardship. I found this book very inspiring because it shows me the great things Americans have accomplished for liberty. It is also written by a well-known and celebrated Chicano author and scholar, which makes it more relevant in the eyes of ethnic studies. I am bothered by the teaching guide, A Framework for Understanding Poverty by Ruby K. Payne. This book lists every stereotype imaginable of poor African American and Latino students. I can honestly say I have never met anyone like the people Ms. Payne painted in this book, and I am friends with, family has worked with, and studied with poor Latino and African American students my entire life. I am offended that this book depicts my identity as lazy and stupid, ignoring the fact that despite being in poverty, I was a straight A honors AP speech and debate champion, thanks to my mother's hard work, and I am not an exception. This book also does not have a single voice by the students she is supposedly trying to understand. Instead, it tries to understand students by stereotypes, which is the exact antithesis of ethnic studies' emphasis on stories by those groups. I suggest to understand a poor minority student in poverty are the books The House on Mango Street, Women Hollering Creek by Sandra Cisneros, and Bless Me Ultima by Rudolfo Ainaya. Even though all three of these books are literature, not guides, they are all stories written by Chicano and Chicana authors living in poverty. It is not dehumanizing to me as a minority student and taught me a perspective as an ethnic studies major rather than basing training off of outlandish stereotypes. In general, I believe that the list you all approve needs to be reviewed for dehumanizing stances against African Americans and Chicana students. I am grateful for the list including W.E. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, which are different viewpoints, but both are relevant to Black perspectives. I hope that could be replicated for my Chicana peers as well. The equivalent of not having Cisneros, Ainaya, and Acuna on a Chicano book list is like not having Shakespeare on an English book list. It is not only outright impossible to teach ethnic history without ethnic stories by its essential authors, but it's also dangerous. By actively denying my story, you are actively denying my existence. By actively denying my existence, you are actively denying my humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Phoebe Sheldon Young, followed by Jeremy DeCarvalho and Sherilyn Carmichael.
Hello to USD Board. My name is Phoebe Sheldon Young, and I'm a Prescott College student currently studying multicultural education here in Tucson. As a future teacher with hope left for our school system, I am disturbed by your decision to approve a book list for the new culturally relevant curriculum program with no Chicano authors on it. That would be like offering a women's studies course with zero text authored by women. That would be like offering a European history class with zero authors of European heritage. Does that sound strange to you? It's because it would never happen. It would be absolutely unacceptable. According to the TUSD website, 93.1% of your students are Latino. The Unitary Status Plan states that the district shall develop and implement culturally relevant resources or courses of instruction designed to reflect the history, experiences, and culture of African American and Mexican American communities. How can a curriculum possibly be relevant to your students' lives and reflect their history and experiences if none of its authors are Mexican American? In fact, none are even Latino. I'm sad for all of the youth who are going to miss out on the opportunity to read true and inspiring books about their cultural history written by people they can relate to. The books you banned last year were an important part of the former Mexican American Studies program, which was proven widely successful in increasing test scores and graduation and college enrollment rates. I am incredibly disappointed at the inclusion of several books on the new book list, which blatantly encourage hateful, racist, and classist stereotypes. One such book is A Framework for Understanding Poverty by Ruby Payne, a white author from an affluent background. Instead, I suggest using Paul Gorski's new book, Reaching and Teaching Students in Poverty, Strategies for Erasing the Opportunity Gap. Gorski, from a working class background, has devoted his life to the study of effective education for low-income students and provides much more appropriate, respectful, and relevant resources. TUSD Board, please remove racist, classist resources such as those by Ruby Payne and replace them with vitally necessary and effective texts by Chicano authors such as Occupied America by Rudy Acuña, Bless Me Ultima by Rodolfo Anaya, Devil's Highway by Luis Orea,
30 seconds.
and House on Mago Street and Woman Hollering Creek by Sandra Cisneros. In order to meet the needs of your students and offer them true cultural relevancy, equity, respect, and support, please reconsider the potentially harmful list of books for this new program. If you would like a more complete list of the books I request removing from and adding to your list, my classmates and I would be happy to offer suggestions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Jeremy Carvalho, Sherilyn Carmichael, and Elizabeth Whithorn. And I'm nearing the end of my card, so if anyone else wants to speak, please submit a card. Thank you.
Good evening, esteemed members of the board. My name is Jeremy de Carvalho, and I come to you tonight as a student of multicultural education, a person with European, American, and Asian American mixed ancestry. The reasons for my presence here tonight is a book list you all recently approved. Although I have not had time to read or look at all of the books on the list, I've already read several works by Said, Du Bois, and Freire in my studies as a student of multicultural education. I must say that I do think these are valuable authors to include on the list, so thank you. However, as has been mentioned before, there's a shocking lack of Chicano and Chicana authors. Now, I do appreciate the attempt at putting books by Ronald Takaki and W.E.G. Du Bois, as well as Booker T. Washington, that take a more critical look at race from the point of view of people of color. However, I'm also slightly offended that these books alone are considered culturally relevant to the students of TUSD. People with more pigment are not all the same. We have multitudes of viewpoints, ideas, thoughts, ways of communicating, beautiful cultures. And claiming that you have created a culturally relevant curriculum in a school district with over 90% Latino students without any Latino authors is slightly absurd. This would be like teaching an Asian American Studies class without any Asian or Asian American authors. There are not two sides to equity, but there are multiple ways of reaching equity. Bigots and people fighting for people's rights. Bigots and people fighting for people's rights should not be given equal time or validity. Rather, in order to better understand our world, it is important to see the struggles of diverse people and the ways that they have overcome, dealt with, and faced these struggles. Different perspectives than are often seen in the mainstream are important to teach in the curriculum. Different perspectives that allow us to see why people hurl racist epithets at myself and others. Different perspectives that allow people to see that they are more than what racist jokes may tell them. Different perspectives that allow for a transformative educational experience. Therefore, I plead you to unban the books on the banned book list. By including them in your new list of books that fit into culturally relevant curriculum, especially those written by Chicano authors, and reconsider allowing works that promote hateful or oppressive thinking. Through knowing the uncommonly told stories of the books on the banned book list, everyone can learn more about themselves and their history, our history, and together we can create a better society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherilyn Carmichael.